Now, 4 rockets have reportedly been fired from Gaza into Israel, where US President Barack Obama is on his first foreign visit since re-election. He's expected to head to the West Bank later on Thursday as part of his Middle East tour. Our correspondent Paula Sleer is there now and joins us live. Paula, firstly, what more can you tell us about this morning's rocket attacks?
Well, as you say, there were 4 rockets that were fired from the northern Gazan town of Beit Hanun at Israel. 2 landed inside Gaza, but 1 landed in the backyard of a residential home in the southern Israeli town of Sderot. Now, there were no injuries, although there was some damage to the backyard. This coming on the second day of the American President Barack Obama's visit to the region, and just hours before he will arrive here in the Palestinian city of Ramallah. There are many who feel that this is a message from the Palestinians, not only those in Gaza, but certainly also the Palestinian street here in the West Bank, expressing anger against the American president, who they feel is showing a much stronger commitment to Israelis and the Israeli position than he is to the Palestinians. Although the official word is that this latest incident is not going to disrupt his schedule for today, so we do expect him arriving here in Ramallah in the next 2 to 3 hours.
OK, well, let's just quickly talk about what has or hasn't been achieved so far during his visit. I mean, he and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu haven't always seen eye to eye, have they? So what sort of common ground have they found so far?
Well, certainly the 2 leaders have not always seen eye to eye, and that is why this visit is largely being dubbed as a PR effort by both the Israelis, who are calling it the unbreakable alliance, and the Americans. Certainly Obama so far is speaking primarily to the Israeli public, and he admitted as much last night after he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He said that his goal is to talk to the Israelis. He has used words such as friends, such as coming home. He's spoken about the close alliance between Washington and Tel Aviv. He's spoken about the importance of Israeli security, and he's also committed American financial assistance to Israel, particularly in terms of military programs beyond 2017, when the current contracts expire. Now, there's been very little mention so far of the Palestinians, of the peace process, of the continued Israeli settlement expansion, and this is in stark contrast to the speech the president gave back in 2009 in Cairo, when he said that one of his priorities in terms of his foreign policy was resolving the Palestinian issue. Having said that, though, there is a lot of mistrust between Obama and Netanyahu. There is a lot of areas of disagreement. They certainly don't see eye to eye on the issue of Iran. Here we have Netanyahu continuing to call for military strike, while Obama continues to say that all options are on the table and that there is still time for diplomacy. So certainly in this, what we see is that despite the PR effort, there is no running away from the fact that Netanyahu still holds firm to Israeli commitment, even if it means turning his back on his close allies. We hear in this clip.
Israel can never cede the right to defend ourselves to others, even to the greatest of our friends. And Israel has no better friend than the United States of America.
What is also interesting is the whole issue of Syria. Now, this has been the #1 issue on the table, and this is despite the fact that you have right on the doorsteps of the Israelis and the Palestinians a conflict that is decades old, and yet the American president and the Israeli prime minister are choosing by and large to ignore it and rather to focus on the internal violence across the border.
Well, you mentioned there, Paula, that the Palestinian issue hasn't been talked about much by Obama. So what sort of reception do you think he'll get when he heads to the West Bank later today? How do Palestinians feel in general about his whistle-stop tour?
Well, there's already been a handful of demonstrations against the American president here in the West Bank, and certainly today the police already now are in full force on the streets. There's a strong security presence, and this is in anticipation of the thousands of people who are expected to come to the streets to protest against the American president's arrival here. The plan is for him to meet at the Mokata, the Palestinian headquarters you see behind me. He'll be meeting with the Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas, as well as the Palestinian Prime Minister Salam Fayyad. No real information that we have at this stage in terms of what will be presented during those talks. But we do think that the American president is likely to ask the Palestinian leadership to resume talks without preconditions. Now, this is an Israeli position. The Palestinian position is that there needs to be a return to 1967 borders. There needs to be a halt in construction of settlements. And in this respect, the anticipation and at least the analysis on the ground is that Obama is not going to push the Israelis, but rather push the Palestinians to meet the Israeli demands. There's also differences over the issue of Jerusalem. A lot of criticism here in Ramallah. Why did Obama meet with the Israeli leadership in Jerusalem and the Palestinian leadership in Ramallah? Is he sending out a message in terms of how America views Jerusalem? Why not meet with the Israeli leadership in Tel Aviv and, for example, meet with the Palestinian leadership in Jerusalem? So there's anger here over that. Certainly the mood is one of frustration, one of anger, and one of disappointment for the American President Barack Obama.
OK, Paula, we do have to leave it there, but thank you for that update. It will be interesting to see what happens. That is RT's Paula Sleer, live from the West Bank.